Hello class, this is Demetrius Wilson with Management 2. This is Chapter 2, the environments of organizations and managers. As always, we will start with our learning outcomes. So after studying this chapter, you should be able to do the following. Discuss the nature of an organization's environment and identify the components of its general task and internal environments. Number 2, describe the ethical and social environment of management, include individual ethics, the concept of social responsibility, and how organizations can manage their social responsibility. Number 3, discuss the international environment of management, including trends in international business, levels of international business activities, and the context of international business. And describe the importance of and determinants of an organization's culture, as well as how organization's culture can be managed. So once we get done with this chapter, you should be able to do all of those. Alright, as we move forward, so be sure to read the stories at the very beginning. They're good. They will help you further understand what we're attempting to get at. I'm not going to read the entire story, but uh, if you look here, according to Mercy Corps, its client-related programs fall into three main areas, right? So when we talk about corporate social responsibility, these things fall under that category. You have alternative energy, so promoting energy sources that support sustainable economic activities like solar energy or hydro energy, or windmills propelled by air. That's energy that's fueled by nature. Number 2, sustainable resource management, supporting a community's ability to provide its own environmental and ecological services. So just even things small, like I used to work for a company who used to go out and they would plant gardens and plant fruits, vegetables, and flowers and things at schools. Just something as small as that. And then advocacy, outreach, and models that work, inspiring governments and communities to rely on proven environment and climate friendly programs, right? So the climate can turn things a certain way in terms of global warming and things of that nature, so we have to find ways to counteract that. You see, if you go out to the Inland Empire, you'll see like solar panel farms. They're just miles and miles of it, and that grid right there can support and sustain the electricity for an entire city. Alright, so now on to our main components of our chapter, things that you should be paying attention to that will definitely be on quizzes and or tests. So we're going to talk about the organization's environment. So you have your external environment. That's everything outside of an organization's boundaries that might affect it, right? So everything on the outside of your organization, it could be the economy, right? It could be the weather. Those are things that are external. Those are outside. You cannot control those. The general environment is a set of broad dimensions and forces in an organization's surroundings that determines its overall context, right? So this is just a general environment, not specific like the external environment. Task environment, specific organizations or groups that affect the organization, right? So organizations made up of a variety of different groups. And then direct counterpart to our external environment is our internal environment, what goes on inside our company, the things that we can affect, the conditions and forces within a company. Won't go over these next couple, but read those on your own. You have your economic dimension and your technological dimension as well. Just be sure that you have full understanding of those definitions. So the story right here, tough times, tough choices, what goes around, right? So I want you to go ahead and read that story on your own. Very interesting. It gives you good insight into the business world and some of the things that can happen. Another dimension is political and legal, right? So I used to work for an organization who had very strong ties, to the political arena, and it went even as far as them sending out an email saying, "Hey, if this person gets elected to president, we're going to have all of these opportunities for our company," and obviously not going past the path of saying, vote for this person, but basically insinuating like if you know what's best for you and your job and your career, you would vote for this person because good things are going to come from that. So political and legal dimension, the government regulation of business and the relationship between business and government. right? So it's sometimes it can be a fine line, sometimes it can be tricky. If you look at something like the NFL and the fine and the suspension they levied upon Tom Brady, and just today, the court, the court system has said no. He was they weren't within. They violated his rights, and then they threw out the 4 game suspension, which obviously the NFL appealed. But it's interesting how those things. Tend to, start to the lines start to get blurred when you get to things like that. Who would have thought that, back in the day? I know it never happened back in the day that court cases would be held about football in the NFL. So, in our task environment, we have competitors, an organization that competes with other organizations for resources, right? So, you compete with them for resources and you also compete with them for customers. You have the same customer base, so you're competing for those customers, you're competing for the resources. If I make cars and I need steel, I need those resources. But if Honda goes and gets all the steel from the main supplier that I wanted, then now I have a problem. A customer, that's whoever pays money to acquire an organization's products or services. So remember, we're not just talking about products in terms of organizations or tangible things that you could touch. We're also talking about services, cleaning your carpet, things like that, painting your house. Those are services that can be provided. And then a supplier is an organization that provides resources for other organizations. I just supply things, right? Instead of selling to everybody, I just sell paint to the painters because I know that they're going to need it. So I just have a small shop, has something where I can mix all the different colors. And the painters, they come in, they buy in bulk, I sell them the paint, and everybody's happy, and I don't have to deal with the day-to-day customers. Regulator and regulatory agency. Go ahead and check those out on your own. Just have a solid understanding of those. Interest group, same goes with that. Strategic partners I do want to touch on. So, organization working together with one or more other organizations in a joint venture or similar arrangement. I worked for a company and they had an agreement. Right, it set up a strategic partner with another company, and the other company said, "Hey, during our end of year, we cannot take all of these calls, and a lot of them result in sales. Can you take a portion of the calls?" So it's kind of like a win-win situation. You take the portion of the calls, and then I'll let you keep the sales that you get from the portion of those calls. So it worked out really well. That's a strategic partner. We strategically placed, and they knew that they could trust them with the information because these individuals actually came from that company, and they still had a good relationship. So let's look at some competitors, customers, suppliers, strategic partners, and regulators. Right. Competitors, you have Burger King, Starbucks, Subway, and Dairy Queen, right? So you could say that, hey, they don't all fall right in the same exact category like Burger King and McDonald's and Jack in the Box, but there's something there that you could compare, right? Breakfast choices. Does Burger King sell breakfast? Yes, it does, right? Get you some French toast sticks. So does Starbucks, so does Subway now, and I'm sure you can find something like that in Dairy Queen. Customers, you have individual consumers and institutional customers. Remember, you can have customers that are businesses as well. It's not just individual consumers. Suppliers, Coca-Cola, wholesale food processors, packing manufacturers. Strategic partners, you have Walmart, Disney, foreign partners, right? Strategic partner, you see them, pushing the goods for other companies because now they've made a strategic alliance, right? I sell Corvettes, and then we have a partnership with Goodyear tires, right? So Goodyear's tire is supplying us with the tires, and we're having a strategic partnership because they're going to get sales, and it's going to enhance our sales as well. Regulators, Food and Drug Administration, Securities and Exchange Commission, Environmental Protection Agency. Look those 3 up on your own. Very interesting. See what they police, see what they do. But let's check out McDonald's and their task environment. An organization's task environment includes its competitors, customers, suppliers, strategic partners, and regulators. So it's everything. The figure clearly highlights how managers at McDonald's can use this framework to identify and understand their key constituents, right? Because that's what you truly want to do. You want to identify, you want to understand, and then you want to act accordingly. Owners. This is whoever can claim property rights to an organization. So if you can claim property rights to an organization, then you are therefore the owner. Board of directors. A lot of people think like, oh, board of directors is a board. They sit around, around a big mahogany table. But no, that's not the case. When you say who's in charge, a lot of people say, oh, well, the CEO is in charge. And the answer is actually, no, they're not. They're not at the top of the food chain all the time. Board of directors is a governing body that is elected by a corporation stockholders and charged with overseeing the general management of the firm to ensure that it is being run in a way that best serves the stockholders' interests, right? So these stockholders just don't fork over their money and not do anything. They give the money and they say, hey, I want to see how your business actually works. Uh, you know, uh, Board of directors, they have very distinct authority, a lot of power, and have a lot of power over deciding who could possibly be the CEO and things of that nature. So you have to know and understand kind of the hierarchy of things, that it's not just always think that the CEO or the president is all the way up at the top of the food chain. All right, ethics. So big topic is ethics these days. So many people are doing and completing so many things that are what you call white collar crimes in a corporate environment, that we really need to have that policed. And it's been policed a lot more these days. So ethics is an individual's beliefs about whether a behavior or action or decision is right or wrong, right? Is your decision right or wrong? And if it's wrong, then you shouldn't make it. But then you become conflicted because you say, oh, well, if I do it, then it's going to help my company, and this is the reason why I'm doing it. Ethical behavior in alignment with ethics is behavior that conforms to generally accepted social norms, right? So generally accepted social norm is to wear a shirt to work, right? But if somebody comes to work without a shirt, that's something that's probably in the policy. When you talk about ethics, it's something like, this is a decision that I should make. Maybe it's not written somewhere, but it's something that you should actually do. Unethical behavior is the exact opposite, behavior that does not conform to generally accepted social norms. So when you think about social norms, this is what you want to look at. What would a reasonable person do? You take that reasonable person standard and it'll help you every time. Managerial ethics is standards of behavior that guide individual managers in their work. Uh, so unethical behavior in white collar crimes has been rampant in the last few years, and we just need to figure out a way to kind of curtail that, to kind of stop it dead in its tracks, and get back to what we call business as usual. Code of ethics, and sometimes you'll see a code of ethics for different companies that you work for. For instance, like Costco, I have a textbook that is right there in the middle of the book. So a company has their own code of ethics. So it's a formal written statement of the values and ethical standards that guide a firm's actions, right? So these ethical standards are going to guide my actions, right? I need to follow that code of ethics. And then talk about ethical leadership. So if the leadership is not ethical, will the individuals under the leader be ethical? Absolutely not. All right. And speaking of ethics, you guys, should all know this story. Sorry, I went down too far. Um, about the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, otherwise known as SOX or SOX compliance. But there are things that we in the corporate environment have to adhere to. So the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002 is a law that requires CEOs and CFOs to vouch personally for the truthfulness and fairness of their firm's financial disclosures, and imposes tough new measures to deter and punish corporate and accounting fraud and corruption. Right? No cooking the books, things like that that typically accountants get tasked with. So funny that I remember that an instance where somebody sent me or they said for me to send them a report. I sent them a report, and they said, hey, the report's not going to work for me. Get creative. It had a lot of financial, figures on there and everything. So, get creative is obviously not reporting the accurate numbers. Get creative means, hey, I need for you to send me something back that doesn't look like what you sent, because I can't turn this into the person who I report to, who actually was the president of the company. So it's just about making that ethical decision, whether it affects the company in a good or positive or negative manner. But you want to make sure that you are doing the right thing. You definitely don't want to be the one that's held liable for when something happens. Social responsibility, and we'll talk a lot about corporate social responsibility and what companies can do to reduce their carbon footprint across the planet, things of that nature. It's a set of obligations that an organization has to protect, enhance the social context in which it functions, right? So companies need to be socially responsible just like an individual needs to be socially responsible. All right, and here are some elements of social responsibility. So as you see, these are the arguments for social responsibility. One, businesses create problems and should therefore help solve them. Number two, corporations are citizens of our society. Number three, businesses have the resources necessary to solve problems. And number four, business is a partner of our society along with the government and the general population. So these are the arguments for being socially responsible. And here are the arguments against being socially responsible. Purpose of business in U.S. society is to generate profit for owners, money, 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 right? Involvement, number two, involvement in social programs give businesses too much power. Number three, there is potential for conflict of interest. And number four, business lacks the expertise to manage social programs. Well, yeah, maybe they do lack the expertise to manage social programs, but they can do things, like I said, reducing the carbon footprint that they put here on the planet, and just be responsible for what they're doing. So if you see right here, just go ahead and read that on the figure 2.2 about the arguments for and against social responsibility. I'm all for it, that corporations, just like individuals, should be socially responsible. Uh, Check these two out. They're talking about compliance. So you do have legal compliance and ethical compliance. Ethical compliance may not always be, what has to, what's shown as needing to be legal or needing to be, fully in compliance, but it's what you should do as opposed to what you have to do. So check out the definitions for legal and also ethical compliance. Want you guys to read Sustainability Matters, so greening the business environment. Hewlett Packard keeps itself in the recycling loop, right? So these companies who produce all of these, big products and everything, they should be able to, recycle things and, and make other things out of those things that are recycled once those goods are, they've been used to the extent of their usefulness. A philanthropic giving, right? So this is awarding funds or gifts to charities or other worthy causes, right? So you see a lot of these people like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates giving away a lot of money to individuals and organizations because they believe in them and they think that they can do great things, and they have done great things. It's also a doctor, I forget his name, but he's the guy who put the money back into opening up Martin Luther King Hospital. Just people who have this money and can give it away to people who are doing good things. I think it's just a very great thing that they have. And it's funny, they have some type of pledge, and I forget what it is. It's something crazy like the billionaire pledge. But they said if this percentage of people in the United States and the world went ahead and said, "Hey, I'm going to give this portion of my money to worthy causes," then it would just solve a lot of the problems that we have. But other individuals, they're just not like that. They're not giving up other things that they do. Whistleblowing. This is the disclosure by an employee of illegal or unethical conduct on the part of others within the organization. You may know it as referred to as something else, but the textbook definition is whistleblowing. We saw that most specifically with Enron, and individual came up and said, "Hey, these things, they're not right, they're not appropriate, and they shouldn't be doing them." And then obviously you saw after that came a lot of legal battles, a lot of troubles for individuals worked for the company and people who worked for the accounting firms as well. Like I had a friend that worked for Arthur Andersen at the time, and obviously he had to go to a new accounting firm because they basically were no longer in existence after that happened. So just have to watch what you're doing out there, whether it's on the street that you walk on or in a business high up in a tower. So here are the advantages and disadvantages of different approaches to internationalism. So approaches to internationalism, so importing and exporting. Advantages: small cash outlay, little risk, no adaptation necessary. right? Disadvantages, you have tariffs and taxes, right? So tariffs are things, taxes on things that are like you import some goods, this additional tax on it. High transportation costs and government restrictions. If you license, you also have advantages and disadvantages. Strategic alliances, same thing, and direct investment, right? You have advantages and disadvantages as well. So once you go ahead and read and go over and review those. Exporting, right? That means goods are going out. Importing means goods are going in or coming in. So exporting is making a product in a firm's domestic marketplace. So domestic means inside your country, a marketplace, and selling it in another country, right? I make it here, I sell it elsewhere. Importing is bringing goods and or services or capital into the home country from abroad, right? And you could be bringing them in to sell them, right? You're probably not bringing them all in to use them, but depending upon what you are, like maybe you're just always an exporter, maybe you're just always an importer, or maybe you're an importer exporter. But you have to know and understand what those terms are. Not tough terms to remember, but they're terms that you definitely need to know. Strategic alliance, this is a cooperative arrangement between two or more firms for mutual gain, right? So a lot of times companies have strategic alliances with banks because the banks say, hey, you know what, we got this person, we just gave them a loan, we want to set them up with this loan officer for real estate or this real estate agent, something like that, right? So you have a strategic alliance with companies, with individuals, because you want to do what's best for your customers because you want to keep them as your customers. I'll let you guys go over joint ventures, direct investment, uh, and check those terms out on your own. Some of you guys may have even been individuals who have completed or submitted direct investments into a company and expect what they call a ROI or return on investment, right? You don't just invest money in a company and not expect for something to come back. So a tariff, as I already indicated, is a tax collected on goods shipped across national boundaries. Quota is a limit of the number or on the number or value of goods that can be traded, right? So it's like, hey, you can only ship in 16,000 Rubik's cubes. That's our limit, right? And there are also some limits that they have when they find things out when they're trading. I remember I forget which country it is, but it was in Asia, and they were importing this fish, right? Calling it catfish, but it wasn't catfish, it was catfish's cousin. And so somebody caught wind of it and they said, hey, you can't bring that into the United States. That's not real catfish. And so they put a, embargo on it and said, no more of that. We don't want any of catfish cousin fish anymore. So you have to make sure you pay attention to those things when you're dealing with other countries, importing, exporting, or you could lose a lot of money. Uh, Economic community, a set of countries that agree to markedly reduce or eliminate trade barriers among member nations, right? So this is like NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, right? So who's in North America, right? Well, you have United States, you have Mexico, you have Canada, right? Those are all in North America. A lot of times people, when you say North America, people think just the United States. No, it's not just the United States. There are other countries in North America. And speaking of, here's the definition: North American Free Trade Agreement, an agreement among the United States, Canada, and Mexico to promote trade with one another, right? So not so many barriers to trade, barriers to enter the trade game between United States, Mexico, and Canada, because we're helping each other out from being, all in North America. All right, so I want you to review those others. I do want to go over organizational culture, right? So you have to have the appropriate culture within your organization, and you have to figure out a way to have the individuals within your organization follow that culture. The set of values, beliefs, behaviors, and customs and attitude that helps the organization's members understand what it stands for and how it does things and what it considers important, right? They need to know and understand, what do you consider important, right? I want to follow your lead as a company as long as it's a good lead, right? If it's a bad lead and the people above you are not going in the right direction, then maybe you need to look at something else. All right, and we are now to our summary, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to read through the summary of learning outcomes and key points, right? So, you go through the chapter. Sometimes it's like, man, chapter's tough to get through and retain everything. Read the chapter, go through the summary, and then also go through the discussion questions. You can ask someone else the discussion questions. You can ask them to yourself and look in the mirror, respond, or just respond to yourself. All kind of different things. So, lot of different useful tools in the book. Check this one out: building effective interpersonal skills. You need good interpersonal skills to work with others, play well with others. So if you don't have good interpersonal skills, then you might want to pay close attention to that. uh, all kind of good things, but that's it for the chapter. Just make sure you use the additional resources. Be sure to take your quiz and complete any homework assignments that are due. If you have any questions or need any help, be sure to call me, or not call me, but email me, and I'll be sure to get back to you with the answer pretty promptly. So that's it for chapter 2. As always, have a good day and a great week, everyone.